the disincentives that these very generous pay packages would have for people, and turned out he was right. So in a nutshell, what was necessary or may have been necessary, very useful then, is a disincentive now, and we're getting ready to go into some of our best times for the restaurants and hotels. And I've gotten personally on my text from hotel owners and retailers and others that say they just can't get people to come to work, and they need, gosh, one hotel operator said he needed 250 people. That's how many he was short. And he and all appear to be quite confident that it's this disincentive that's doing it. So if we don't need it, then let's don't do it. Because also remember, we got to pay all that money back sometime through our taxes. There's no such thing as free money. It's either the government either borrows it or gets it from taxes, but either way, we got to pay it back with tax money. So that's why we're doing it. We think we're healthy. We think that we took the right approach to not closing down like they did in other states. We took a very targeted, smart touch. We never had a stay-at-home order. We never had a statewide mask mandate. We tried to be smart, and we had a group of business leaders, academics, educators, everybody in between, legislators. We call it Accelerate SC, and we constructed our plan on what to do and when to do it, and that's what we're following now. That's a long answer to a short question, but what you said was exactly.
Governor, I'm having technical difficulties and cannot hear your audio. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you, but you're frozen on the screen with a little bit of a scowl on your face.
We're getting that fixed right now. Hold on one second as we fix that technical issue.
Danny, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Bob Morgan, are you with us now? Don't think so.
Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I don't know what happened there. I'm going to assume you finished your answer to that first question. Is that true?
I did indeed. There's a real good one. I'm sorry you missed it.
So, again, we applaud the decision that you made late last week to address the issue of benefits that are too high. Some of the critics have suggested that daycare is an issue, particularly for women who've been disproportionately affected. I heard it said yesterday that some people, they've done so well in the stock market, they're retiring earlier than they thought they would. How would you like to see some of these other issues addressed in addition to the high unemployment benefits to help increase our overall workforce participation?
Well, it's the same programs that have brought us to where we are now with all that the technical colleges do with Ready SC. We put millions of dollars in this, the most recent budget, to go to training and retraining, collaborations between all of the above. We've got apprenticeship programs, the Be Pro, Be Proud is reaching those kind of skills. I mean, we are charging on every front to be sure our people have the opportunity to be well trained. Also, I've asked for funds to open up the 4-year-old kindergarten statewide. There are a lot of places where it doesn't exist for those in the poverty level. We've got to see to it that we invest money in education, both at that level as well as at the university level. I've asked for funds for various types of scholarships for our young people. That's where the future is. But as far as the child care centers, I've got some figures here, and we are really, this is one of the areas that we watch for over a year now, is how many are open and how many aren't. And right now, of all the child care centers, we only have about, I think it's about 4% that are not open. which is just about standard. And we think that, I don't have the latest information. I don't know how much of that is due to COVID. A lot of times they just close for various reasons, but we have 2,296 regulated child care providers, and 96% are open and serving children and families right now. I presume that if there is a market for more, that the market will respond. There may be some funds available to assist in that, depending on what comes in this rescue plan, which, by the way, our state will be receiving about $2,499,000,000, I think 499 or $449 million. It's a lot of money. And I need to say that the guidelines that have been issued so far, we've had conversations with Secretary Yellen and Undersecretary just the other day and some others involved there. There's some areas that we would be willing to put some of that money into that we're not going to be able to use. We would like to invest it in things that would help the state grow. But this seems to be a slightly different approach. But nevertheless, we got a lot of child care providers out there. And whereas at one time we had about 52% in March of 2020, 52% of them were closed. Now 4% of them are closed. And most of those, of course, were because of the virus. And it was real high back in March of 2020, it was 34% were closed. And the end of March went up to 52%. In August is 37%. Then in September it's 26%, and it's dropped on down. November 7%, and now it's 4%. So I'm not sure where the additional customers are coming from, but we will do our part to encourage whatever growth would be good. But so far, I have no data on exactly what that would entail. I don't know if Mr. Elsie does, or perhaps someone else in maybe the Department of Social Services would have some information on that. But I think we're in good shape. The fact that we didn't close up like they did in other states, we are not having to dig out as they are. And we've stayed fairly level. We dipped down, of course, but we're coming back up. And so we're in a position to really, as you and I discussed before, to take some great strides forward to enhance our competitive strength and really do some great growth for our people during these next few years.
Governor, you mentioned talking to some of the federal folks. What has been their response to your decision, and do you expect legal pushback on this?
Well, you usually get legal pushback on most everything. If we do, we expect to prevail. I have not spoken to President Biden about it, but I heard him say on the TV, maybe it was yesterday, I think that there had been some discussion about whether these benefits were causing the people not to come back to work, and he thinks it's not. And of course, we disagree. My take from what he said was he thinks that that's not what the problem is. But you may have heard the same thing I have. People all over the state are pointing at that as the reason they can't get these employees to come back to work. So I believe in that information and whatever data is available.
Well, as I mentioned, 60% of our members say this is a top issue. And of course, our friends particularly in hospitality and tourism, manufacturing and construction, the feedback that I've gotten since late last week has been very positive. So I think we're hearing the same thing. Anything else before we go to Director Elsie? Anything else you'd like to add or communicate with our business?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm very optimistic. I think our people are in South Carolina. We've had this conversation before because of how long we've been here and what all we've been through and where we came from and how and all that. We're in the right place to have great growth. We've got great industries that have settled here. We got more that are looking. our right to work status, our legislative friendliness and understanding that South Carolina's business is something that's recognized. Now the fact that we didn't close down as they did in other states, there's still states that have a lot of things closed. And up in Michigan and some other places, they even closed down automobile manufacturers. And of course, we did none of that. So I think I have a very positive, happy outlook about the future right now and the way we're going. And I look forward to being a part of it.
Well, thank you very much. And you are welcome to stay with us as we pivot to Director Elsie, the Director of the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce. And I point out that Director Elsie is an alum and former partner at Fisher Phillips Law Firm. This webinar today is brought to you by Fisher Phillips. And so thank you to the good folks there who are our sponsor. Director, let me just throw it open to you. Anything you would add to or underscore what we just heard from Governor McMaster?
Well, I would certainly agree that the economy is improving rapidly. We see it in our agency with the number of new claims declining weekly. Many of you may remember we started at about 2,000 new claims per week back in February of last year and got as high as 88,000 in 1 week in April and have been going down ever since. We are now plateauing around the 3,000, 3,500 level, which is above where we were, but is very, very good progress. And we're going to continue making progress. So I'm very optimistic. I do think we've got some challenges, and those challenges are making sure the employers have got the employees they need. Otherwise, the growth is going to stop. The recovery is going to stop. The irony of the situation today is that we've got 81,000 open jobs posted, ready to be filled. Employers are desperate in many industries. You see signs everywhere you go, hiring, need employees. At the same time, we've got 103,000 being paid unemployment. Now, that's a different number than people who are filing for unemployment. 103,000 people were paid unemployment benefits in the state of South Carolina last week. 81,000 open jobs, 103,000 being paid unemployment. I heard the president's speech yesterday where he addressed unemployment, and I think his response was that the unemployment benefits, in his mind, the impact was not measurable. He essentially deflected it and went to child care issues. We talked to DSS last week. The governor's exactly right. 96% of them are open. We talked to the Department of Education last week. 100% of our schools are open 5 days a week in person. So a lot of the expeditions that the president gave for people not going to work don't apply in South Carolina. Healthcare, fear of COVID-19. We've got more vaccines than we can possibly give in the state of South Carolina. Anybody can ride out to Columbia Mall today and any point during a 12-hour shift can get a vaccination without an appointment. So they're basically available on demand. The only thing we've got standing between us and economic success and success for our employers are employees. And that issue is money. And the governor, by his pronouncement last week, has eliminated that issue. Over half the employees who were paid in unemployment benefits last week made more in unemployment benefits in the two of the programs, UI and PEUC, than they did when they were working. So obviously somebody who's making more now than they made on a job when they had to work 40 hours and drive to work and pay for childcare does not want to return to work. And that's the dilemma that we face right now. This dilemma was not made by South Carolina. This was made by Congress when they drafted the CARES Act. Senator Graham, and I'll give him complete credit, he nailed the issue as of April of last year and was on it, but the die was cast. It is what it is. So it's regrettable that Congress ever did it. I'm not saying all the benefits. I think they were a good idea. It was the FPUC, the $600 a week, which is now $300, which is what has distorted everything. But the fact is we can't wait for Congress to fix it. I think the governor's move was the right decision at the right time.
Director, can you explain to the rest of us what is recall resistance and what is your agency doing to combat that?
Recall resistance is a term we used at Accelerate SC last year when we were talking about the issues we were going to face. That is the math. When you look at any number of jobs and look at the hourly rate, somebody's making $7.25 an hour when they're working. They're now making 153% in total benefits, state and federal. If they were making $9 an hour, they're now making 133% of what they made when they were working. To break even, you got to get over $15 an hour, and then you got to cover the fact that they're not paying for childcare when they are on unemployment. Recall resistance is what happens when you pay people too much money not to work. So let me reiterate, the federal benefits were not wrong. Nothing wrong with PUA, nothing wrong with FPUC in a measured amount, but it should have been, as Senator Graham and Senator Scott both proposed, it should have been up to a make whole maximum. So my portion of the $600 should have gone up to make me whole with what I previously earned and no higher. But that didn't happen. And as a result, we wound up with recall resistance, where employees are, many of them, anybody making $15.30 an hour and less is better off financially to stay home than to go to work. And that's a problem that, of course, hits hard at retail, accommodation, and food service. Those are the industries that really suffer with the federal benefit. So what are we doing? We put into place last year, after hearing from about 50 restaurant owners, a recall task force. We set it up in April of last year. We have a special email address. Any employer, restaurant, hotel, manufacturer, anybody who recalls employees to the same job or a similar job that they laid them off from, if they report that to us, then we cut the benefits off of the employee. Employees are not, by law, supposed to draw unemployment when they have refused a suitable offer of employment. So we have a formal organization that works with employers, gives them forms to make proper recall requests, and sends us the notice when they don't go in. And it has been a very, very active task force. A lot of employers are taking advantage of it.
And presume folks can go to your website and access that information easily?
That's correct. Or they can call me and I can get them in touch with the person that runs it. And we will certainly work with them. We've got a number of programs. We sent out a document last week as to what we're doing. The governor's program will be effective as of June 25 in South Carolina. That's the last week ending prior to June 30. So the question has come up, what's going to happen between now and then, particularly in the resort industry, whose season ends in the end of August. And what we did was put out this document of the different programs that we are doing. We mail it to every employer in the state of South Carolina that's within our suits tax base. That's 108,000 employers. We sent it to the state chamber. They sent it out to local chambers. We sent it to every employer association that we know of in South Carolina. And it lays out what we can do to help somebody get employees. We have, number one, we have implemented work search. That is required, 2 a week. We do weekly job matches every week in every county. We break down every employee who drew benefits and have our computer analyze his background and experience, and we match it with employers who've got posted positions who are working with us, and we match them. We have moved to a new program. We did a pilot on it in Waccamaw area, Myrtle Beach, about 3 weeks ago, called Enhanced Referral. We bring in employees virtually, work with them on their resume, et cetera. If they don't show up for the meeting, their benefits are cut off. That is a requirement of that they work with us. They have to do what we ask them to do. We then, at the end of the meeting, we give them 3 employers to go apply with. Those employers we're working with, they have a list of who we've sent to them. They then get back to us and say, Dan Elsey did not show up. Dan loses his benefits. John Jones showed up. I offered him a job. He didn't get it. John Jones is going to lose his benefits. So we're doing a lot in those areas. We are taking that statewide as quickly as we can. We're doubling the number of people involved, even in Waccamaw, as we speak. We will be implementing virtual job fairs, which will be a godsend for our employers. We're going to be doing our first one with the Restaurant Lodging Association coming up in May 18, I think the date is. It'll be a statewide, but when you go into it on your portal, you will automatically be diverted into your geographic region and you'll be applying for jobs and talking to employers who work there. Perfectly safe, no exposure to anyone, very convenient, everybody can do it. And the last thing we offer, and we work with many, many employers, manufacturing, large employers to the smallest restaurants. You want a game plan? We'll work with you on it. We're going to come up with a game plan that gets as many recruits in your door as we possibly can. So this document is in the hands of every employer who pays unemployment taxes in the state of South Carolina. We invite all of them, as we have with different chambers of commerce we've spoken to, different legislative delegations, to contact us. The document shows them exactly how to contact their local representative who can help them do any of these programs. So we're being as aggressive as we can under the law, not to push somebody off unemployment. That is not our purpose at all, but to get people who ought to be working back to work. If there's no suitable job for them, then we understand and they'll stay on state unemployment. State unemployment is not going away. It's still there. So somebody who was laid off 3 weeks ago and still got 17 weeks of unemployment, they will continue drawing. What they will lose is the federal supplement. Employees in the other programs like PEUC, the federal extension of our program, and PUA, the unemployment program for people who are not employed, that were self-employed or gig workers, those two programs will be going away on February 25.
Can we put you on the spot for the phone number that folks can call to your office?
Well, you know, I started to give out mine, but having just gone through the pandemic, let me send you the person's name and I'll get it to you. You can get it to everybody. It's Gray Parks. He runs these programs. I don't have his number right here, but I will send it to Sarah as soon as we finish this program and she can get it out to everyone.
We'll do that. One final question, Director. Pre-pandemic, I believe I saw yesterday, unemployment in South Carolina was below 3%. And that's the good news. When it came to workforce participation, we were not in the top half of the states. Looking to the post-pandemic world, what are the longer-term solutions to increasing workforce participation in South Carolina?
You have just moved into my number one area of interest in this job, and it's the reason I am here. South Carolina has always been, throughout my entire life that I've spent here, considered a poor state. And we're considered a poor state for a number of reasons, but the main one is, simply put, not enough of our adult, non-incarcerated residents work. Now, we're at a disadvantage when you look at the numbers because we are now a retirement destination, and that will make your labor force participation rate numbers go lower. But the fact is, even before that, our numbers are not good. Our labor force participation rate in March was 57.2%. Not great in the Southeast and not great in the nation. So we had a number of programs that we were working on hard prior to the pandemic, working with an economist from the Fed, Dr. Laura Ulrich, who specializes in this area and has been extremely helpful to us and generous with her time, to look for ways to identify people on what the economists call the sidelines. People who are just not working, they choose not to work. They retired early, they got laid off and never went back. They had a baby and never went back. So what's keeping them from working? Well, one thing we did learn is shift schedules. Some people can't work first shift and they don't particularly want to work full time anyway. We did a pilot program up in Spartanburg with Cooper Standard, one of our fine manufacturing companies in the state of South Carolina. They're in the auto parts industry. It's a true factory. They were having trouble, even though they pay top wages, staffing second shift. So we worked with them and came up with a brand new program that split second shift in half, 2 different 4-hour segments. We then, our agency, went out and recruited people to come in and work one of those 2 segments. So you would have 2 people for every job that you needed. And we recruited from an unusual source, not unemployed people, but policemen and firemen who were already working, but work very different hours. Many of them are 3 days on, 3 days off, and something like that. Many of them also have part-time jobs. We have found that the key to getting people to do that is $20 an hour, part-time, no benefits. So you're paying about the same thing you pay a regular employee once you factor in the benefits. In any event, the response was great. We filled up second shift or put in a number of firemen and policemen out there. Can you think of a better employee to have in your manufacturing plant than an off-duty policeman or fireman? I can't. Huge success. Just as we're ready to declare victory, the pandemic starts. And, you know, I hadn't looked at anything but unemployment and fraud since about March 15th of last year. But we're going back to that. We did some other programs. We did one down in Fairfax, South Carolina with Scotsman Ice Machines, old friend and client of mine. We were doing an event down there, and the VP of HR for the whole country was there and said, you know, we pay one of the highest, other than Savannah Riverside in areas, the highest wages. We can't get employees, and we'll get them, we can't keep them. What's the problem down here? So we studied what their problem was, and we came up with a solution. Our agency runs the federal training programs. The federal training program, Workforce Innovation Operations Act, is for people with barriers, and we train people wherever they are, regardless of their barrier, whether they're going to be able to get to work or not. If they're eligible, we train them. The Scotsman training we did was totally different. We only allowed people in the training, we didn't use federal money for this. Only people we allowed in the training program were people who met Scotsman's requirements in terms of education, criminal record, and anything else that they were interested in. So you don't get in the training if you don't meet that. We weren't going to train people who were not going to get hired. And we didn't train anybody that didn't have a job waiting on them. So you've got the perfect situation. You can get some motivated people. Many of them had other jobs, would like to go to work for Scotsman, make more money. They went through the training program. We did soft skills training for all of them, not manufacturing training. Scotsman doesn't need any help in us doing that, but soft skills training. Started referring the people to Scotsman. Several of them were hired by other companies. They were highly in demand because these are well-qualified people. Scotsman hired the rest of them. Very, very successful program. Once again, pandemic hits, and there we go. I'll mention one more thing. If I'm running out of time, just tell me to quit talking. I'm happy to do it. But we, you know, manufacturing jobs, you think, who could have trouble hiring somebody at $25 an hour? How is that possible in the state? But it is. So we were dealing with employers up in the Greenville-Spartanburg area last year, manufacturers, top jobs, and they were just saying, Dan, we cannot get employees. So we were talking to one of the companies up there, and they had a bunch of employees who came down from North Carolina every day and worked. And we talked to some of them. They loved it. We talked to them about their buddies. I didn't really realize this, but the counties just north of Spartanburg and Greenville are not nearly as prosperous as the counties as Greenville and Spartanburg. They don't have the kind of manufacturing jobs that we've got. So we said, why don't we go after those employees? Let's target people, not unemployed people. Let's target people making $15 an hour and bring them to South Carolina and let them start at $19 an hour. Somebody would drive 30 miles for $8,000 a year. And the question came up, how are we going to target them? I said, well, let's go to North Carolina and do a job fair. And everybody, including my agency and people on the outside, said, well, that's crazy. North Carolina is about to let you in there to do it. But think about it. If we get North Carolinians to come down here to South Carolina and get a better job than they had in North Carolina, somebody's going to take that job in North Carolina. And now the person who goes home to sleep and spend the night in North Carolina is making more money than he was making in North Carolina. So they cooperated with us 100%. In the end, they did, I think, feel some political pressure, and they came to us and said, we got to have at least one or two North Carolina employers. So they added them, but they weren't of the magnitude that our South Carolina employers were. Every employer I talked to that participated in that thing said the best job fair they'd ever gone to, have never seen such high qualified employees. We were ecstatic with the results. We were ready to take it statewide, other parts of the state. Matter of fact, the hospital industry over in Northeast South Carolina wanted us to do the same thing in Southeastern North Carolina, and we were ready to do it when, once again, March 15 rolled around. So we got a lot of things that I want to get back to, and the state of South Carolina needs us to get back to, and we need to quit focusing on unemployment 14 hours a day, and we need to look at all aspects of this job, many of which have to do with job development and keeping employers prosperous and bringing more in.
Wow. You and I have just met, but I understand why you're in the job that you're in. So thank you for all of that. Want to thank everybody who's on this call for your attention. We'll get the follow-up information to you in terms of the phone number to the director's office, the appropriate number. Would like to again thank Fisher Phillips for sponsoring the webinar today. And of course, Director would like to thank you, and would especially like to thank Master for taking time out of your day, and more importantly, for what you're doing to try to help our economy to continue to grow and thrive, and for companies to be successful in South Carolina. So with that, we will stand adjourned. Hope everybody has a great day, and hope to see everybody again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good seeing you.